Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. Corey Fontana lives it. Head coach Tony Ersland coming to you live, not really, from West Lafayette. You guys,
from somewhere.
It's here. It's opening week. It's opening week. We're going to talk plenty about the duels out in Philly this weekend. But first, we got some business to attend to from last Friday night. You guys had Wrestle Off's coach in Holloway Gym, and it was wrestling. What's not to love? What did you like about what you saw last Friday?
Yeah, good first opportunity to see the team compete down to weight, right? That was part of it, that warm-up routine, how they made weight, how they, warmed up again and got ready to go. It was solid. There's some tweaks and some adjustments that we made coming out of last week, especially concerning how some of the guys, warmed up. You know what I mean? Like I'm always in favor of a very hard warm up to get your motor running. And I thought some of our young guys, went a little light. So, it's funny that we're competing and you want to get to results, but I'm stuck on warm ups. Like we need to warm up hard, get our motor running, make sure we're in the right frame of mind. But no, overall it was a strong showing. We have, for the most part, right, a veteran lineup. There's a few spots where we have some youth and some inexperience, but man, those guys took care of their business. They look very solid in how they approached everything. And for the most part, like I said, our returners look very strong.
Anybody in particular? I mean, I know where my head's at, but obviously your opinion's probably a little bit more important when it comes to wrestling and the team and, who's doing well and whatnot. Anybody really jump out at you?
Well, not really in terms of this. Like our good kids looked good. When people think of our nationally ranked kids, I thought they all looked very solid. I mean, if I go down, and you look Devin Schroeder, Devin Schroeder was dominant in his performance and he looked good. I think people probably understand now Matt Ramos is going to be a fun and exciting wrestler, to watch this year. He's going to have some growing to do within the weight class and folk style, but no, he's going to be a fun wrestler to watch. He was dominant, and looked sharp. He had a good time out there competing. Parker, was very strong again at 141. So again, like that's kind of, those are your guys, that you would expect to do well and look good. And they did, they held up there in the bargain there. Alec White continued his fall workouts in performances. I was really happy with how he kind of looked within that mini bracket of guys, and he should. He's a senior, very experienced kid, and he's looked very focused. This year so far. Kenny's always fun to watch. Kenny's, and I say Kendall Coleman for people not around the program every day. I guess we call Kendall Kenny. So if I slip again, you'll know who I'm talking about. Great to have Kendall back, right? Had injury at NCAA's, sat out until this fall, and he's now, you can see, kind of really getting the rust off and back to his old self. So excited to see him back out there. We had a good battle at 65. Emil Sunderland coming out on top of that match, very workmanlike. In that situation, I think both Emil and Hayden know that I'd like to see them get more attacks off, and have more scoring holds within the match. But again, the way those guys went about coming down, making weight and approaching the match was good. They just got to, those kids both work hard. They got to show off their skill sets, right? Like they got a lot of skill sets, show them off, let the people see them. So that'd be one tweak there. 74, just kind of a very controlled, it was an exhibition match, right? I mean, that's one where we've got three guys with Lowry, Nienhouse, and Emil that we're all kind of trying to figure out. So we just had an exhibition match for Garrett, and he was very controlled in his win. You know what I mean? I guess the real battle was McCartney and Max, right? McCartney and Max looked very solid, both of them. McCartney had some nice upset wins last year as a true freshman. He continues to grow and develop and push Max. He got into some situations there, where he really made Max work. You know what I mean? And so I was happy to see, some depth at that weight class between those two guys. And then Penola and Wolf, very, kind of just two really experienced guys, right? If you take a look at their resumes, two very experienced guys who have wrestled in a lot of matches. And so that was a fun one just to see two guys go at it, with different styles, right? Vastly different styles there between Penola and Wolf and what that looked like. I'd say heavyweight, we're still looking at what we can do at heavyweight. You know what I mean? We've got some good talent. There's no doubt. I like what we have there, but we're going to still continue to play with that. So I know you wanted me to pick a few, but it was hard.
You picked 10.
You picked 10.
Yeah, I picked 10. I take everybody we're going to put out on the mat. That's who I take.
Love it. Well, you did take them. That's why they're here.
That's right.
Are you right? A couple fun notes that I took away from it. Going back to Matt Ramos, which I didn't think about it at the time. I think Shop may have been the first one to mention it, but then Ramos told me kind of separately. Friday night was Matt Ramos's first folk style match since he was in high school, which for those playing at home was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So really interesting to get him back out there, not in a freestyle capacity, and kind of see what he could do under the folk style set of rules.
Yep. No, he's making the transition. That's an interesting, right, kind of stat there, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, for that guy who's really been freestyle focused, but you can see, man, he loves to wrestle, and he'll wrestle from every position. So again, I think he's making the transition and will only continue to get better and better, as he gets experience with these matches.
He seems like with his explosiveness and his flexibility and his athleticism, he would be a pretty dangerous scrambler. But in freestyle, because of the exposure stuff, he probably has shied away from that for a while. We've gotten to see I got to see a little bit of it Friday. He had that really nice step over that came out of a scramble that he put Christian White on his back. Is that something that you see, like you want to see him do more of? Is that something that you want to see that you think will develop as he gets into more folk style matches?
No, I think absolutely. The goal always is to bring your skill sets to the mat, right? Like take all those things that you work so hard on in practice and throughout your career and show them off for the people again, right? Like that is always the goal, is to free yourself up and to compete at your highest level. And so I like the fact that he's out there. I don't want to say it's taking chances, right? But he'll do some things other people can't because of his flexibility, because of his athleticism. He'll bring some things that not everybody does, and that, again, that's the goal for everybody. I go back like, man, Emil and some of these other guys, you got a lot of skills, man, use them, you work your tails off. And so that's all we want to see from our guys is, wrestle hard and bring all of your skill sets to the table. Certainly stay smart, right? Your goal is still to compete smart, but man, go to battle with what you got.
Yeah. Parker Phileas is another guy. Parker put a lot of, like, the last 6 months for Parker have been an incredibly disciplined, methodical. I mean, and obviously that's Parker to a T, is, he's very methodical in everything he does, but the way he has managed his weight and kept himself down at 141 while getting stronger, I think has been a pretty impressive process. And it was not without a lot of planning and a lot of like strategy and a lot of looks at how he was going to get to this point. And making weight for the first time, I thought it really all paid off for him.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, I was impressed with him. He's a big, strong kid for the weight. That's going to pay dividends for him and how he wants to wrestle and compete. And he did it right. So, yes, I would just echo everything you just said. It all paid off for him, and he had a good, strong first showing. And I know he's really excited about the year.
And definitely hats off to, Elaine Wanstreet and Ryan Shane and the work that they've put into Parker. We scaled back his lifting, we changed his diet. He really, like I said, there was, because I think at one point there was probably a little bit of talk of, he probably heard the idea of going up to 49 just because, it's not easy for him to make that weight. And he,
Yep.
he made some sacrifices and he changed some things up, and it got his body obviously where it needs to be.
Yeah. I would say that's apparent that the changes he made in the offseason have paid off a great deal for him.
And Alec White can, on the other side, I feel like Alec White has really filled into 149. That kid changed his body and looked good.
Yep. And he's always had the ability, right? I would say that Alec has always shown us these things. Now he's been unfortunate with some injuries, right? That's been no doubt. I think that's kind of out there a little bit, but he seems to be very, very focused to here this fall. He's really dialed in, and he's doing the little things better, even in practice. He's been very stingy in practice about not giving up points. Sometimes in the past, maybe give up an easy point here or something that was careless, a detail in practice. And I've seen him really kind of more dialed in on being very tough in those situations and not giving up the easy point. When the easy thing would be to maybe step away and give up an escape, he's lifting and he's returning and committing to his ride. Like, there's some things there that I think, speak to his mentality.
Got a bit of a blessing and a curse thing with our 65-74 situation, and would love to kind of like hear. Wow, I kind of want to hear what Corey thinks too about this. Is you got three guys for two weights. All three are very capable. All three could fill in to size and strength at both weights. What are the goods and the bads for having that kind of situation?
Yeah. Listen, from a coach's standpoint, it's good, right? Like, you need depth in your program. I mean, you need, unfortunately only 10 get to wear the singlet for any duel, but it's a physical sport. And if people get nicked up and go down for a little while, it's good to have people who can step in. So from my standpoint, it's good. It also creates competition in the room, which is also a very positive thing. People push each other. So from my standpoint, it's all good. But then it's also our job to figure out how to get people in the right spots, in the right places, where they can be at their best and where they can score for the team in a way that's going to help the team out the most as well. So it's just kind of looking at where we thought guys would thrive the most. And so that's the way it's shaking out right now. And I'm not saying things can't change. The goals, as I've always said, the goals will stay the same about what we're trying to do, but the path we get there could change. So, but right now, Garrett Ninehouse is up at 74 for the weekend, you'll see, and Emil will be in at 65. So that's where we're at right now with it. And we feel good about it. We think that's, where both guys will thrive and excel. And so we are happy that this is where they're both at. But, it's a bit of a flip flop, right? Like, people will look at last year, Emil was up and Garrett was down. And so it is a flip flop. But ultimately, we think with their styles and how they wrestle and compete, that this is the best thing for them and the team.
Absolutely. And you got two guys who have been nationally ranked at their weights.
Yep.
Garrett Ninehouse is going in with some preseason rankings at 165. Obviously, that'll translate. Emil Sunland was honorable mention at 174 from Flow and spent some time ranked at 165 2 years ago before he got injured out of Vegas. So you got some guys, and then you got Hayden Lowry like nipping at their heels. He wrestled a great match against Emil on Friday night. So it's a good problem to have, right?
Yep, no doubt. Like I said, from our standpoint, it's all good. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great situation in the room. People are pushing each other, making each other better, trying to be the man. And competition wise, we have capable people who, if somebody goes down, can step in. You know what I mean? Like, you want that situation at every weight, right? I wouldn't tell you that I have that situation at every weight class. Want it? That's the eternal struggle, right? Is to build that. But again, it's all good from our standpoint.
One last guy that I want to mention, we talked about Matt Ramos's layoff from Folk Style. Michael Wolf had an infinitely longer layoff from folk style wrestling. Last competing in 2016 with the Naval Academy, and coming back and joining the program and doing his thing for the first time in the old gold and black on Friday night.
Yep. It's such an interesting story. We've talked about him before. I actually talked about Michael the other day on a Purdue preview with, us Big Ten people, right? So it's interesting that, we've got a guy who's been out of the sport for 5 years, but his story and who he is, right? And even the impact on the team has already been I would say significant. Tremendous role model in the room, works his tail off, sharp as a knife, in terms of his studies and what he's doing, right, with his PhD. And it's just been a very positive thing. And people are going to see him compete for us. He's going to be out there despite, right, 5 years off, and he just gets in here this summer, gets moved in and starts. Then he's in the room right away, man. He couldn't keep him out. So he's been a mat rat, and he's all in. It's not like, hey, I'm just kind of working my way back. He showed up Friday night, and he's getting ready to beat Penola. That's what he's thinking, right? And I love that. That's how you need to think. All of our guys need to think that way. I'm showing up, I'm getting ready to win. And so I've really enjoyed what he brings, to this team, both who he is as an individual and kind of maybe the effect that he can have, especially on the young guys. If the young guys are paying attention, they should pay attention to a guy like Michael Wolf and how he kind of runs his life.
Yeah, it's been his mature approach has definitely been noticed by your director of ops and how he prepares for travel and asks a lot of the right questions, and it's rather refreshing. I know that not all college students can be 25 years old or however old Michael is. He's probably a little older than that. I don't know. I'd have to go look. But
I was gonna say he's been out. No, I think he's 27. Didn't he just have a birthday?
Could have.
I'm sorry. I think he just turned 27. You can look that up and confirm for me.
Well, and the crazy thing is,
I'm sure he just turned 27.
I don't want to look too far ahead here, but when you look at the probable starters for Drexel and Rider for this weekend, both schools plan on sending out true freshmen at heavyweight. So that'll be an interesting clash right there of experience versus youthful exuberance.
That is funny.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be 10 years older than some of these kids. No, maybe
not quite 10.
Close.
No, they're probably 18.
Yeah. That's funny. I guess the last thing I want to talk about with Wrestle Offs, and I think this was this is probably the best point of all of it. We got to open the doors to fans and bring some folks back into Holloway Gymnasium to watch us compete. And while it wasn't its usual boisterous atmosphere that a duel brings, it was still really great to have people in the building.
No, 100%, right? It's just another milestone on your way back, right? It's another milestone that you can kind of point to that gets you excited for the season. With most venues we went to last year not allowing fans at all, and now here we are on Wrestle Offs, and to have a good number of people in the stands watching the kids was awesome.
Yeah. One note that we alluded to last week, but we weren't able to talk about because it hadn't been released yet. The Big Ten television schedule came out. Yeah. And the Boilermakers are slotted to have 4 of their 8 Big Ten conference duels aired nationally on the Big Ten network. Pretty awesome milestone for the program, Coach.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's just more opportunities to build and grow your brand too, right? On TV, we've got a lot of good things going on. Clearly, we're very excited about the group we have and the possibilities for the season. And so to be able to showcase them more than ever on TV, I think is really kind of going to be a fun year for them.
I think even more awesome for our hometown, our local fans. 3 of our 4 road duels are going to be nationally televised. So, fans they're gonna, even though they can't come over to Holloway and open the doors up, they're going to have the chance to turn on the Big Ten network and and
Yep.
watch us at Iowa, at Indiana, at Northwestern, which I think is pretty fantastic.
Yep, no doubt. When you can't travel, now you can tune in. That's awesome.
Corey, can you talk a little about the growth of wrestling on the BTN and how many more duels are being televised as opposed to streamed, and what that looks like, not only for your job, but like just for the sport.
Yeah, for sure. I know it's something that the Big Ten Network is partners with the Big Ten Conference and the conference institutions, and they're all about expanding the brand and strengthening and all of that. But they're also about making money. One thing they learned in the last couple of years is wrestling is a big time moneymaker for the network. So they've really gone all in on the sport. They've expanded coverage. They've more duels we saw last year at the Big Ten Championships. They expanded coverage, there on day one. And that wasn't just a COVID response where, we don't have fans in the arena, so we need to bring it home. That's, I think, I'd be shocked if that's not the new normal going forward. Their expanded coverage, of Big Ten championships, just because they understand in Chicago at the network and at the conference offices how big a deal wrestling is in this conference, and that we're kind of the standard bearer for the sport in the country, and they want to capitalize on that by providing as much as possible. That's why you're seeing, 26 duels televised this year.
Yes.
Across the board. That's a huge number. They made the big investment, years ago on the streaming side, and they're constantly trying to improve that product as well. But yeah, the investment on the network side, on the linear side, to put things over the air is huge, and it's largely because wrestling is either the third or fourth most watched sport, third most watched sport they have behind men's basketball and football, and that is not lost on anyone up there. So they're really paying attention to it. You've seen Beyond the Mat, the features show that they've started up, and that they keep pouring resources into that. Better coverage, better telling of the stories. We've seen some one-off documentaries on the sport as well. The Alex and Eli was fantastic last year. They're going to keep doing things like that, and it's great for everybody in the sport. It's great for the sport itself, and it's fantastic for the fans.
Absolutely. It's funny you bring up Beyond the Mat. They'll be here in 2 weeks to come work on a few features. They've got a couple feature stories lined up for the Boilermakers that'll be presented to the airwaves on the network and on their digital network here this season, which is really exciting. And I know that they're talking about featuring, they've already invested in featuring our Hoops and Headlocks doubleheader with men's hoops, and they're going to do there's talk of doing some featurey stuff around that. So all super exciting. Really glad that we're getting more and more of our duels televised and covered, and all the stuff, Corey, you said about the Big Ten championships. They're running it back this year. They've got it it was all on the schedule. They're gonna televise all four sessions, and they realized last year when they did it, people watched. It was viewed, and it was viewed for long periods of time. So as you said, I think that's gonna be the norm.
The other thing that I think about wrestling specifically, it applies a little bit to other sports. I like men's basketball, but if Rutgers is playing Maryland on a Tuesday night, I'm probably not going to watch. If Rutgers and Maryland are wrestling on a Friday night, there's a lot of wrestling fans who don't care about either school necessarily, who are still going to tune in. I love watching all wrestling on the network, almost all wrestling on the network, not just Purdue. And that's true of a lot of wrestling fans, and that helps spruce up the numbers too. You can take what is traditionally thought of as a smaller fan base, but boy, is it loyal, and boy, does it love the sport. It doesn't love the school necessarily; it loves the sport, and that's really good for the sport.
I got
Yeah, I'm glad
go
you
ahead,
said
Tony.
that. Huh?
Go ahead. I got a fun wrinkle to throw at you in a second, though.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny he said a loyal fan base, because that's exactly what was running through my head the whole time he was talking is, our people tune in because they are very loyal, you know what I mean, to what we're doing. And it's just a great reason to keep watching and pulling other people in, because I know we've been trending up, and we've said before, third highest, viewing, I think, on BTN last year. And if that trend that we've been on, this upward trend, continues, I know from a sponsorship standpoint and what the dollars you can bring in, that could be significant. Now you got to keep trending that way and keep growing. But boy, the possibilities, if we can find ways to make that happen, are pretty exciting for the sport.
So a fun wrinkle to throw at you, Tony, from a coaching perspective. With more wrestling being televised, it means there's more film out there. It means there's more opportunity for coaches to see, coaches and wrestlers to see other coaches and wrestlers and see how teams prepare and see how wrestlers prepare, and increasing those scouting reports per se. This is a thing that, football's done this, obviously for a long time. Basketball's done this for a long time. They have online platforms where they all share content, they all share film with each other just because it's so regular part of the sport. How do you see the increased television coverage, like increasing the kind of scouting and the kind of preparation that goes into dual meets, especially within the conference?
I mean, I just think it's already being done, right? It's like you're talking about with football. That's already been the case, honestly, for a long time. I think, as soon as BTN started streaming everything, right? We all have accounts. We can go on and 10 matches and find who we want. Flow Wrestling, which has been around for, I'm not even sure what the first year of Flow was, but a long time now, mainstream of what we do. I just think you're already seeing the impacts of that. It's not uncommon for us to come in, sit down and watch for tendencies. I'm not a guy, though, that likes to get into everything your opponent does. I don't, want to do a huge deep dive in with a kid and confuse him, right? Like at the end of the day, it's still about us dictating what's going to happen. But it's always good to know a few things about your opponent. Right? That he's dangerous in a position, or, he's got something that he uses quite a bit. It's always good to understand your opponent. But we don't want to get to where it's all about him, what he does, and now we're not focusing on our thing. So I think it's always the checks and balances with your kids in terms of watching film. But certainly as coaches, for a number of years, you'll be watching, and picking up tendencies and then working with your kids accordingly. You'll be down in the room and you might have a few things. If you got a leg rider, or like I said, a guy who's really dangerous from his feet in a particular position that you're paying attention to, those things happen. But I don't think of it as like it's going to really increase what we do at this point, because it's so ingrained in what we do anyway. That's already a big part of what we do, Tanner. So it certainly helped, but I would say that started, years ago, with
digitally.
With BTN and Flow and those kinds of things.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of scouting and looking at other opponents, let's take a quick peek at this weekend. We are heading out Friday to Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, where we will wrestle at Drexel and at Rider on Saturday. 2 duels, same day, 2 opponents, both on their home turf. Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited. It's a little different for us. Travel won't be extensive, which is why we kind of liked it, as a challenge. I present it to the guys. It's kind of like when you're at a tournament and you show up in the morning, you warm up and you get a match in, and then you go back to the hotel for a couple hours and you come back, in the evening, right, and get ready for round 2 of the tournament. So I kind of view it like that, and that appealed to me. I wanted multiple matches this year. The way I looked at it, I wanted multiple matches for our first date, but I didn't want to be in like an all-day open. Like, you look, typically we were at Michigan State and you might get 5-6 matches, in a day. And so with this group, largely, again, a veteran group, I thought, hey, a couple matches on the day. with very minimal travel and those things would be ideal for us. So that's why we agreed to do it and thought it was a great opportunity.
So funny enough, this is not the first time Purdue has made this trip.
Yep.
2008, we did a similar deal, although we did it in reverse. We went and wrestled at Rider and then drove down to Philadelphia and wrestled against Drexel and won both those matches that year. But it was a crazy time. That was my third year in the program. So I was still very young and learning, and it was a little crazy, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to go do that again and see how things have changed and see if we can go pull out a couple wins again.
Yep. It's, and it's not anything abnormal, right, for us. I mean, like I said, it's the difference between being at a tournament. I think some people outside of the sport, you think of playing, basketball, say plays one game a day, football one, most sports, right? Most sports, they're going to play one contest in the day and that's it. That you wouldn't think of, doing two. But wrestling, it's something that's very normal for us. It's just another way for us to get multiple matches. But again, I'm not, I don't have our guys in for 5 or 6 matches possibly at an open where I'm really like with, let's be honest, like with a guy like Devin, who's in year 6.
They need it.
Tested. A lot of these guys are very battle tested. So it's about getting them, match shape and making that progress towards March, and then this was a great way to, in my opinion, to start this off.
And for those that don't know, Drexel and Rider are very close together. They're about 45 minutes apart. So it's not a huge travel between sites. It's, I never thought of it in the way that you portrayed it in the tournament, like genre, but it definitely, it 100% fits.
Yep.
It's exactly
when
like
you go to nationals, or even say, you go to nationals, you're going to show up in the morning, you're going to wrestle once, and you're going to go back to the hotel and you're going to chill and you're going to wait till we need you back over at the arena in the evening to come over, do your warm up again. You know what I mean? So it's a normal part. And I thought, again, I wanted the multiple matches. So this served its purpose in that way.
The other thing about those two opponents, they are smaller schools, smaller conferences, but they recruit that Pennsylvania, New Jersey area. So they traditionally are solid programs, despite the fact that they're not in the Big Ten or the ACC.
No doubt, wrestling's like that, right? Like you can find good kids everywhere. And we'll need to be ready. This is something that you can't look past, to your point, Corey, right? Like we need to be ready to go. And all competitions matter. I mean, they all do. At the end of the year, you qualify for nationals, based on your RPI, your win percentage, and a ranking, right? Like a national ranking. Those are all factors that go into determining, who qualifies their weights for the national championships. And so in my mind, and certainly what we express to our guys, is they're all important. You know what I mean? Like they're all, you got to be ready to go. We view them as equal, so we want to have, everything under control right out of the gate and just make sure that we're progressing week to week through the season.
Looking directly at Drexel, there'll be a 1 p.m. start live on Flow Wrestling for our Flow subscribers out there. The Dragons have 3 ranked guys in their lineup, Tony. They've number 29, Parker Kropman at 157, number 16, Mickey O'Malley at 174, and number 29, Brian McLaughlin at 184. So a few solid matchups there right in the middle of the lineup for our guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, we'll have to be ready. You got to come out and you've got to, come out swinging, come out fighting. And not try to work into it. The goal is when you put your foot on the line and the whistle blows, you're after the guy. You're dictating what's going to happen. So it's really about that mindset for these kids. It's not just trying to win. Obviously you train to get your hand raised. Trust the best way to do that is stay in the moment and come out and do your best wrestling. And so that's all I'm really focused on with these kids right now is, hey, you come out swinging, come out and get on your ties, get on your single legs. Let's score points the way you want it to go.
Now, when we head up the road to Ryder, it's going to be interesting because everybody's going to weigh in together at noon, even though Ryder won't be there. We're all going to weigh in at noon. So by the time we get to that 8 p.m. duel over at their place, which again, more streaming, it's going to air live on ESPN Plus. Everybody's going to be, pardon the term, everybody's going to be fat and happy by 8 p.m. and really ready to go. So it'll be a different kind of duel than most. Ryder brings in 4 nationally ranked guys in their lineup. Richie Kohler at 133 is number 24. Ohio State transfer Quinn Kinner is number 22 at 141. You got Jake Silverstein, number 31 at 157. And Matt Correnti, a familiar face, transferring over from Rutgers at 197. He's ranked number 26. So another good slot of matchups there in the nightcap.
Yeah, right. I immediately go back to Penola wrestling Correnti. You read off that list of ranked guys, and then that's great. But that Rutgers duel, which was quite exciting, won in the final match of the night, by Phileas for us. But Penola had a huge win in OT with some craziness against Correnti, who at the time, like you said, was at Rutgers. So,
and they were heavyweights for that match.
They were both heavyweights a couple of years ago, and now back down at 197. So, going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. Yeah,
and hats off to both Coach Hangy and Coach Azevedo. They've been great to work with and accommodating as they know what's going on and as we head out their way. And we've navigated that whole process as far as like where we're wrestling, when we're wrestling, so on and so forth. Because there was a lot of flexibility when we planned this in the beginning.
Absolutely, 2 good guys, right? As you said, easy to work with, but just good guys too. I've gotten to know both of them over the years in the sport and have a lot of respect for who they are and how they run their programs. So, I look forward to having them back at Purdue in a year. We're going out this year, and they've both expressed interest in coming back to Purdue in future years. So we do look forward to that.
That'll be great. I guess one last note that I wanted to definitely get into this show, and it's not a happy thing, but the Purdue community and the local wrestling community around the greater Lafayette area mourn the loss of Mike Atwood this week. Mike's son Braden was a member of the Purdue wrestling team. Mike was the head coach at local Delphi High School, and was a love member of the wrestling community.
Yeah, long-term fixture in this community, right? I mean, just long-term, really good guy. I know he impacted a lot of lives, as a lot of coaches do. Very well respected in what he meant to the community. Braden was a senior when I first came to Purdue. I took the job. Braden had 1 year of eligibility, and Mike was very welcoming. Was just meant a lot to me. I appreciated the way he welcomed me to Purdue, even though. Braden I didn't recruit him. We had a year and I love Braden, it was a great relationship. And so I've really come to appreciate the fact that was some of my first interactions was with Mike, Mike Atwood, because Braden was a leader of that team, and an outstanding wrestler for Purdue. So yeah, tough week here, for the Atwood family. And we certainly miss Mike. I'll miss him, had lots of conversations, even though Braden's been gone. Mike was still in the area, be at the golf outings, show up, talk wrestling, whatever. And so I will definitely miss those conversations. And, our prayers and thoughts go out to the entire Atwood family for their loss.
For sure. Mike was funny, big guy with a big personality. And it was always funny. Mike was one of those guys he's one of those, there's wrestlers that are like this. They always want to grab you and wrestle a little bit, when they see you. And, initially for me, not being a wrestler, I was initially like, get off me, Mike. Come on, stop it. But it was also, when I thought about it, it was kind of when I first knew I was part of the wrestling family. You don't walk up and do that to somebody you're not comfortable with, or that's a little weird, right? To go grab somebody, it was definitely a reflection of these were people that I enjoyed being around and wanted to be a part of. And, memories like that and those kinds of interactions are what brought me back to the team, a few years ago when I came back on. And so I'll really miss Mike a lot. And, Braden was one of my, initial kids, and he and I still stay in pretty good touch. And so, it's good to hear that he's doing okay. And, he's hanging in there with all this. So, but it's, we'll miss Mike.
Yeah, no doubt. Mike was, very tough, very direct, right? As a coach and then an AD. Always appreciated that about him. And Braden was kind of the same kid. I mean, it's not a funny story, but it's fond in my mind just because it reflects both, how Braden and Mike approach things. Braden tore his ACL his senior year, nationally ranked kid, and tore his ACL literally 2 days before our first event, that year, and still rehab, found a way to get back in the lineup and qualify for nationals, on a leg that was severely damaged. And so that just kind of summarizes in my mind to, their attitudes and competitors that they were and how they approach things. So that's how I'll always think of, that family, especially Mike and Braden. I
think that's all we got this week, Corey, unless there's anything else you had, but I think that's a great way to leave it.
I think we're good, fellas. I can't add anything to the Atwood discussion. Great dude. Gonna be missed by hundreds, if not more. Good luck this weekend. Travel safe. Get a couple wins.
Thank you. We'll get her done.
Beautiful. Boiler up. We'll see y'all next week.